Welcome to Govs TV and 91.9 Public Affairs. I'm Micca Terrell. The next 2 weeks are really busy ones here in Clarksville, Montgomery County. We have spring break for Austin Peay students, and we have St. Patrick's Day weekend. So a lot is going on the roads. And how is local law enforcement making sure we're all safe? Well, joining me today is Sergeant Jimmy Brown with the Montgomery County Sheriff's Office and Jennifer Szczerbiak from the Clarksville Police Department. So guys, let's start first with spring break. Let's talk about, there's typically a lot of road trips, not just for students, but kind of everybody. What are some of the things that each of your departments are doing to keep people safe on the road? And Jimmy, let's start with you.
Okay. Well, during this time of the year, of course, there is a lot of traffic, with spring break for Austin Peay, and then we'll have spring break for the students in the Montgomery County school system. So during this time frame, we'll be out observing traffic, looking for infractions of violations of the law to help keep people safe and to remind people that they need to slow down, wear their seat belts, don't text and drive. And, so we'll be out looking for those things.
And what about you, Jennifer?
We kind of, as the city, we do about the same thing. We put some extra patrols. We do saturation patrols at night during our trouble hours with drinking and driving. And kind of just like what Sergeant Brown said, we're keeping extra people out there. We're looking for the people that are speeding, the aggressive driving, the texting and driving. We want to make sure that everybody's wearing their seatbelt, that they're safe, and we add extra police officers, extra patrols to the roadways to try to keep people safe.
And kind of segueing out of that, it seems like, do you guys notice, I think, apparently more infractions in traffic in general on those holiday times?
Well, there's more people on the road usually because nobody's at school, so everybody gets to go shopping all the time or doing other things. So, you just have more people on the road in general, so of course you see more incidents of activity of people violating the law during that time. Great.
Now let's talk about what kind of things you do. Obviously, Jennifer, you mentioned like sobriety checkpoints. I think both of you mentioned those. So sobriety checkpoints are a big deal. Besides those, what other sort of means do you do specifically to kind of make sure, particularly drunk driving and drugged driving, what do you do to work out, watch for those?
Well, what we do along with the sobriety checkpoints, people think that, well, they're just all right there at the checkpoint doing stuff. But even during the checkpoint, we have other people out roaming around in different areas looking for violators. We both get grants from the Tennessee Highway Safety Office to do traffic enforcement, DUI enforcement. So, especially during these holidays, we'll use some of that grant money from the Tennessee Highway Safety Office to put extra officers out looking for violations of the law.
And what are some of the things, because I know particularly I noticed in the news recently we've heard a lot about drug driving. People, because prescription abuse is a big problem here in the state of Tennessee. What are some of the things that you look out for when you are particularly just kind of keeping an eye out for that? And Jennifer, do you mind targeting that question?
Our officers, we're extensively trained through different programs, and we really look at the drunk driving plus the drug driving. We have officers that are trained just for that aspect. If we suspect that there's drugs involved and we don't have the expertise, there's several officers that are trained in that we can call them and they can come down and assist. They have a specialized training, their DREs, which is basically drug recognized experts, and they can really hit on exactly what that person's under the influence of.
Right. Now, and this is, whichever one of you want to take this next one, obviously don't drink and drive. That's a big thing, spring break, St. Patrick's Day, don't drink and drive. But what are some other things that people can kind of keep in mind when they're getting, out on the road and maybe going out for, a weekend drive, or maybe they are going to a party? What are some of the things they can keep in mind, maybe with like safety belts and other important safety aspects?
Right. Well, it's law. You have to wear your seatbelt when you're operating a motorized vehicle. So you want to make sure that you're wearing your seatbelt because, you know how you drive. You may feel that you can drive safe enough to where you don't think you need it, but there's a lot of other people on the road that they might not drive the way you do. So they might cause your crash, and and if you get hit in the side of the vehicle, and depending on the vehicle, it could roll over. You want to have your seatbelt on so that you stay in that seat and you're not ejected from the vehicle. So, you want to wear your seatbelts. You don't want to be distracted while you're driving. Talking about the texting and driving, normally if you take your eyes off the steering wheel to send a text, that's about 5 seconds. And if you're doing 55 miles an hour, you're going to travel about a football field length before your eyes are back on the road. And a lot can happen in 100 yards.
And have you noticed, is texting and driving just like a younger driver problem, have you noticed, or does it seem like everybody?
It's everybody.
It's everybody. We were just pulling stats, and we were talking about it beforehand, and one of the big lines that they said is, and I'm going to read this verbatim because it's so dramatic, it says, "Distracted driving has become a major safety issue throughout the county, and nowhere is this epidemic more keenly than in the state of Tennessee. According to recent reports from the National Safety Council, Tennessee has the most safe cell phone related car crashes of any other state."
Wow.
So that tells you right there, and that was something that really shocked me when I pulled that stat up just a couple of days ago, that this is a huge problem. It's not getting any better. When pulling up, and I don't know how the county is, but with us, the most contributing factor for crashes is following too closely. And what are we doing? When we get to that stop sign, that red light, we look down, we grab our cell phone, we start looking, we look up, we think that car's gone, or we think the car's moving, we start going, and we look back down at the cell phone to finish that text, and that car's now stopped, and we rear-ended them. So that is one of the leading contributing factors we're seeing, and it's just people just being distracted, not paying attention.
Yeah. So they need to just put the phone down, right?
Yes, that'd be the best thing to do. And it's not just a text. You know, people use their telephones for more stuff than that. And the law does cover more than just texting. You don't have to be texting to get stopped for it. You can be surfing the internet, you know, reading a website. It's any kind of read or write a message or reading anything that could be distracted. You can get a charge for texting while driving. So it could be, you know, you could be distracted by using your GPS on your phone. You know, if you're typing in an address that you want to go to, well, you're typing a message, you know, typing in information. So that's distracting, and it can be charged that way.
Good to know, because a lot of people do that. I mean, I know I do that too. I type in the address and everything. So what we should pull over, right, and do it then.
You should do that before you start.
Right.
You know, and that way you're not sitting there trying to type in something and you're not looking at the road. Because you think, you know, most cars are about 2,000 pounds, so you're driving a 2,000-pound bullet down the road. You don't want to hit somebody with it.
No, definitely not. Now, what about with weather conditions too? You know, we had a lot of rainy weather and everything. What are those? How does that kind of exacerbate, you know, that problem that you have with people following too closely and with being distracted?
Wear your seatbelts, use your headlights when you're driving in the rain, and slow down. That's our biggest thing, is you have to slow down. You have to realize the roads are wet, especially when it first starts raining. You have the oil off the roadways, it makes it extremely slippery. So when it starts raining outside, slow down, take your time, leave a little extra space, and that's going to keep you where you need to go safely. And the biggest thing is just slow down and take your time, because that's what we see is people get in a hurry. They're still doing 45 miles an hour, even though the weather only permits you to go about 35 miles an hour.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I was just going to say, on the interstate particularly, it seems really bad where people just figure, oh, well, the speed limit says 70, then I can keep doing that even though they can't really see that far ahead. So.
Right, and the speed limit for the signs is for ideal conditions. Well, those aren't ideal conditions, so you should slow down. And you can be charged with violating the speed limit law. Even though it says 70, well, I was doing 70, but the ideal conditions didn't meet that criteria for that to be effective. It's less. You need to slow down.
And let's talk about speeding for a minute too. Have you noticed that speeding is an issue too? You know, anytime right now, but of course, you know, right now, more busy time, like you all said, more people on the road. How do you, you know, make sure that people make sure they stick to the speed limit or adjust, you know, for weather conditions?
All right, well, we both have speed trailers that we put out to let people know, hey, just think about your speeding or what your speed is, but especially, you know, out in the county, the wide roads are wide open, you don't have a red light every time you turn around, people get their speed up, and that's where we have a lot of problems is people exceeding the speed limit and driving, you know, because they think they know the roads, they've driven it 100 times until they come around that curve, and the next thing you know, there's a little raccoon or a possum or something in the road, and then they're going too fast and can't avoid it.
And that was funny you brought that up too, because I do live out in the county, and those trailers are helpful to kind of remind people, hey, you know, this is the speed limit here. What are you going? But road hazards, that's another good thing to bring up. So what about road hazards? What do people need to be aware of? And which one do you?
Just like I said, always drive expecting the worst. You know, you keep that space in between you. Drive defensive. Be ready to stop. Be ready to swerve. Always be looking ahead and look at what avenues of escape. You know, if that car comes into your lane, can you get over in the shoulder road? Does it permit? Can you get over? Is, you know, there anybody next to you? So drive defensive all the time. Just always have that plan in the back of your mind. What if stuff goes south? What if the car or the truck that's in front of you, their load comes off? Where are you going to go in that point? Do you have enough distance to safely stop? That's pretty much the biggest advice I can give people. In the city, of course, you know, if you're on Old Ashland City or the bypass somewhere like that, you know, the deers are so prevalent. They're always out there on 74. You have to be ready for them. So keep your eyes out, scan the roads, and be ready for that, either that person, that deer, that car to always pull out in front of you.
Now, a question about the deer, because I've heard different things. I wanted to ask you all, being the experts and everything. I've heard some people say, hey, you know, especially maybe if you're out away from the city lights, have those lights on bright so you can see their eyes. And then I've heard other people say, well, put them on low because you don't want to blind them and make them just kind of be with that deer in the headlights look, just kind of, you know, scare them. What do you all suggest would be the best thing to do with the deer?
Well, with me, you know, if no other vehicles around, I'm gonna run my high beam zone so I can see that. Because your high beams will shine about 350 feet out at night. So that gives you space to react if you do see them. You know, even if they do get that deer in the headlight look, well, that's about 350 feet away, and as long as you're not, you know, exceeding the speed limit or going too fast, you'll be able to stop in that distance.
That's good to know. Now let's shift gears a little bit. I know this has been an issue. I've had a few friends of mine, particularly when they've been driving out in the area on Wilma Rudolph, Jennifer, out by the mall, aggressive driving. And I know probably people will be out shopping more into things because, again, they'll be out on the road. What about aggressive driving? How can we prepare ourselves to deal with that?
Just let it go. If somebody cuts you off, people make mistakes. Sometimes it's a mistake, sometimes it's deliberate. Just let it go. Try not to be the aggressive driver right with them. If somebody's tailgating you, try to get over, let them pass. Don't sit there and as soon as they pass, you start riding their bumper and then you pass them and slam on your brakes because you're starting to add into it. And a lot of times what happens is it starts feeding. You know, one person gets mad and then does something and then the other person gets mad, and before you know it, you've got two people that are going to cause more of an accident. They're now the hazard to everybody else on the road. So if somebody does something to make you mad, just really try to let it go. If you see it, definitely call 911. If you can get vehicle descriptions, tag numbers, any of that stuff's definitely helpful.
And Jennifer, that was kind of leading into what we're going to ask you guys next. What can citizens do if they see, you know, aggressive driving or drunk driving? Is it best for them to just pull over and call 911? What do you suggest is the best plan of action?
Well, I mean, if you're part of it or somebody's doing it toward you, the best thing to do is pull over. But then if call 911, you know, to let the dispatch know that, hey, this is going on, like Jennifer said, you got the vehicle description, you've got a license plate number, and that gives us some information to look at and to maybe try and find this person. But what might avoid it somewhat is if people use one of the original instant messengers, which will be turn signals. You know, if you use your turn signals to change lanes, that gives people an idea, oh, this person's wanting to come over. And be courteous, you know, let them over. Don't jam on the gas to try and get ahead of them just to beat them.
And I think courtesy is one of those things probably we all need to work on, yes. Right? And this turn signal, that's really important too.
Yes.
I think a lot of us forget, you know, we need to put that blinker on.
Yeah, they're standard on a vehicle for a reason.
Right, and they mostly work. We just got to use them, right? Right. Thank you, Jimmy. Now let's talk about younger drivers for a little bit, because I know that we talked a little bit about them in texting and driving. But Jennifer, I know you have a good program to help young drivers learn good habits, like using their blinkers and being defensive drivers. Can you talk a little bit about that?
We do. We have a STAT class, and it's called Student Traffic Awareness Training. And what we do, some dates for it is May the 6th, August the 26th, and October the 21st. All these are Saturdays. And it's for young drivers ages 15 to 18 or 19. We do an afternoon, it's free. We have it at one of the local churches in Clarksville, and we go over a little bit of everything. We show them a presentation where we talk about speed awareness, occupation protection. We go over drunk driving, distracted driving. We hit all the important messages on it, and then at the end, we let them go out and drive golf carts, and we put the drunk goggles on them. We let them text and drive, and it would be amazing that the driving is worse texting and driving than it is with the drunk goggles on. And then also we have a special guest. We have Stephanie Rutherford come out, and she talks about her story where her daughter was hit with by a drunk driver and how it has put her in a wheelchair since then. So kind of a big eye-opener for the kids. It's fun, it's free. Definitely anybody that's interested, I'll put a link up, give you some applications. And some of the insurance companies have been letting that help out and lower the insurance rates.
So I was going to ask you, yeah, that's
definitely
great.
We're trying to get on board with a lot of them, but I know some of your local ones definitely encourage it for young drivers, and they let the parents, they give them a little discount for it. So
that's good stuff. Now, how many students who have participated, what have been their, I guess, reactions to the course that they've taken and then gotten out on the road with a car?
They tell us when we finish. We usually have to kind of kick them out. They're there, they ask questions, they're really involved. They tell us how much fun they had. I've even had several of them come through for a second and third time. We don't care if you bring your other friends and do it a couple of times. But really, we're not seeing these teens as our problem teens. If we, come up on an accident, they're the non-fault driver, and they're telling us, hey, I just went through your stat class. I remembered this, we talked about this. So we're not seeing a lot of these teens when we're making the traffic stops or we're working the accident. So hopefully we're getting through to a couple of them.
That's good. Prevention is really good to do with that. That's awesome. I wanted to ask you guys too about sleeping, because I know we have sometimes the young folks have this problem, but I think it's just overall, and we're shifting gears a little bit, but making sure you're not fatigued while you're driving too, because I know that's an issue, because you talk about drunk driving and texting while driving. Those will really make you not pay attention. But what about sleep and getting that sleep, and what should you do if you feel sleepy on the road?
Well, if you feel sleepy, you need to pull over. Stop, take a nap, whatever you need to do, call somebody to come pick you up. Because, we get a lot of calls where somebody's calling in about a drunk driver, and we get there and it's somebody that's just tired. But it's the same effects. People driving behind you don't know the difference between somebody that's fatigued and somebody that's impaired, because you're doing the same stuff. You can't stay in your lane because you're nodding off or going off the side of the road. Your speeds are up and down. So, you get the same clues really from a drunk driver as you do from somebody that's tired.
And both of you, I know, sometimes team up to do things. Will you be teaming up again during these busy times in spring break and St. Patrick's Day, or will you be kind of working independently and sometimes you, again, work together?
We usually get together for checkpoints along with the highway patrol, and then usually on the weekends, when we're doing some saturation patrols, the city's doing it also, and and if we have issues, that we see, we'll go to the areas where there's being more issues.
And as far as checkpoints go, I wanted to ask this because I know I don't encounter checkpoints a lot. I mean, I'm not on the road at nighttime. I know, and typically you guys do them then, but I did come back from a drive-in movie out in Camden one day with my daughter, and it's like, what's the proper behavior for a driver when they encounter that checkpoint? Obviously, if they're sober, they would want to slow down, right? But I figure, what are some things that people can keep in mind when they encounter those?
When they come into the area, you have the signs up, you know what you're coming into. Mm-hmm. So just slow down when you come through there. If the speed limit's 35, you don't have to run 35 till you stop at that officer. Because let me tell you, it is so scary when you have somebody blow past you at 35 miles an hour and you're standing out in the middle of the road. So when you start coming up to it, you see the cones, you see the signs, you see the patrol cars, start slowing down at that point. And all we're going to do, we're going to come up to your window, we're going to introduce ourselves, telling you what we're doing, and whether it's a DUI checkpoint where we're looking for drivers that are impaired, or whether it's a seatbelt checkpoint where we're just looking for seatbelts. And at that point, we introduce ourselves, we ask you a few questions, and then most of the time, if there's no violations, you're on your way. So usually 2-3 minutes is all it is. Mm-hmm. And then we ask that you remain going slow until you're throughout the whole checkpoint. So, and that's it. Unless it's like a trooper checkpoint or a highway patrol, we don't ask for driver's license, insurance, or any of that stuff. We're just making sure nobody's impaired, and we're trying to keep the road safe for people.
And that brings up a good question. I wanted to ask you about insurance. What are the requirements for insurance if you're driving on the road in Tennessee, not just in Montgomery County or Clarksville?
Well, you have to have liability insurance, and that just kind of saves everybody money because the insurance companies aren't having to fork out as much for paying for a vehicle that because somebody didn't have insurance. But you have to have insurance. If you're stopped and you don't have insurance, you're more likely going to receive a ticket for it. Your car could be towed because you don't have insurance. Then also, you know, if you're found guilty of not having insurance, the state will suspend your driver's license. So then you won't have a driver's license either. So, you know, it's just best just to get, you know, the insurance that's required. You know, that's going to cost you probably a couple $100, you know, depending on your driving habits. But, you know, the ticket for not having insurance is over $200. So if you're going to have to pay the ticket, might as well just get the insurance and be done with it. And then you'd get to keep your license too because you have insurance. If you don't have it, the state's going to suspend your license, and then you get stopped again. You don't have insurance, don't have a driver's license, you might get to go visit our facility downtown.
Yeah, might get to have a nice little stay there over on Commerce Street. Now, I wanted to bring up, because I know we were talking about the sobriety checkpoints just a minute ago, and those flashing lights are there. Let's remind people about the move over law, because I think they might encounter maybe not the sobriety checkpoint, but one of you might have somebody pulled over on the side of the road. What do people need to do when they see those lights? And I know which one of you want to talk about that.
If we're on a traffic stop, Wilma Rudolph, Fort Campbell, somewhere like that, and there's multiple lanes, if you can get over and keep that one lane where we're at, the lane next to us free is the preferred method. If something happens and you can't get over, traffic's just not going to prohibit it, then slow down. That's what we ask. You slow down, and I'm talking almost to a crawl when you pass us. Officers have got killed because of this. They've got injured. Even here in Montgomery County, we've had officers get clipped with the side mirrors, all that stuff. That's our biggest thing, is just slow down. If you can yield the lane to them, you know, yield the lane to them. And if not, and there's somebody there, we're definitely going to pull you over and we're going to write you a ticket for that. So, and that's actually everybody now, your safety, your other workers.
Your highway department, street departments, TDOT, even tow trucks on the side of the road trying to help somebody with a car that's broke down. It applies to any roadside emergency, you know, convenience service like that.
Let's talk about a little bit how scary that is, because I know you, Jimmy, you kind of touched on it when you're like, you're in a 2,000-pound bullet. Talk a little bit about how scary it is, because I know you both do traffic enforcement. What it's like to have people whizzing by you when you're trying to, you're out, you're physically, you don't have any protection really.
Right.
What's
You
that
know,
like?
You're out there and you're trying to concentrate on that vehicle you got stopped. Because you just stopped this person, you don't know, you know, you may have just stopped them for speeding. Well, why were they speeding? Did they just rob a store down the road, or did they just kill somebody? You don't know. So you're trying to concentrate on that vehicle, and then you've got cars, you know, whizzing by you. It's distracting us from doing our job and paying attention to that because we're worried about getting hit also. So, you know, just slowing down, you know, and when I mean slow down, I don't mean slow down to the speed limit. I mean slow down well below that, because I've been out before and, you know, I'll clock somebody still doing the speed limit while they're passing me, especially on the interstate. You know, at 70 miles an hour. Well, I slow down to the speed limit, that don't count.
Yeah, like Jennifer said, slow to a crawl,
To a
right?
crawl,
To a
right.
crawl.
To a crawl.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, it's going to delay you at 10 seconds. You know, how much, you know, you may make that up on the next red light.
We had just the other night, I think it was a week ago, 2 weeks ago, we had an officer that was on a traffic stop, and we actually had a county car that was out with them assisting in the traffic stop, and a drunk driver came by and slammed into his patrol car, which in return knocked it into the other patrol car. And it's, we're very fortunate that nobody was in between the cars at the time, but that's what we're talking about. Slow down, really pay attention, because you never know what's going to happen.
And he was also texting.
Oh.
He was having a texting argument with his wife.
Oh my
and
goodness.
then kind of bounced on the curb a little bit and then hit the side of our patrol car, which knocked it into the city one, and he was impaired also.
Wow.
So not only was he texting and driving or impaired, he was both.
How
Allegedly.
often do you come across that? Because that just seems to me kind of really difficult to be impaired, messed up on something, and try to text. How often is that? Do you see that a lot, or is that how often?
It's not something you really see a lot, because, there's only so many of us out there, to find violators. But if you think about it, somebody that's impaired, they're not thinking right anyway. And they do multiple things that are violations.
Now, what do you think would be your best advice to give people who are driving, on spring break or St. Patrick's Day? What would be probably the best thing you could tell them to do when they're out and about? Both of you could.
I just tell them, slow down, pay attention, keep the phone down, keep the phone, like I said, in the passenger seat, wherever, and really pay attention to what you're doing. And if you have a time limit where you're supposed to be somewhere, just leave earlier so you don't have to speed, and enjoy the ride. If you're going to go out and you're going to have drinks, or you're going to be drinking and driving, make sure that you either have a designated driver that doesn't drink, or if you do, there's so many different ways now with the city buses. Uber's becoming huge, get you a ride. There's multiple ways to get home safely than to drink, and don't take the chance.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I think we need to touch on that too. Besides taxis and the buses, there are other means that people can call a friend or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so what was your best advice to me?
Well, not only to slow down and all, but as Jennifer mentioned, prepare and be safe for the ride, is thinking about the motorcyclist, because it's getting that time of year also where the motorcycles are getting out more so. And it's real, like when we talk about motorcycle rider education, we ask them, how can you enjoy the ride and alcohol? Well, the only way you can enjoy them is separately. You don't want to put those two together. As you think about it, on a motorcycle, an impaired rider, there's only two wheels on the road, and you've got to keep that bike up stable also. So, the motorcyclists out there, and then also, the car drivers, you need to watch for the motorcycles also, because they're out. And, as, we both ride, and on our personal time, and, you have to be very observant of the traffic around you, because the people aren't looking for the motorcyclists.
That's very true, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I know we have the signs up that say look twice, save a life, but I think you were right. People kind of get oblivious with, you're not maybe as big as a car, and so people kind of forget where you are. So that's great to
They
bring
blend
that up.
in perfectly with cars a lot of times, unless you take that second look. And then for the motorcyclists, we need to take responsibility and drive the speed limit. You got two wheels, you can cut in between cars, you can maneuver, you try to see how fast your bike can go, and a lot of times when they look at you the first time, they think they're probably only going 45 or 50, when in reality they're doing 60 and 70, so they pull out and they close that gap. So a lot of times, like I said, really speed awareness for the motorcyclists. You really need to slow down and watch what you're doing, and just, don't try to take those chances.
Definitely. And I wanted to bring up too, thinking about just other modes of transportation, maybe people downtown, particularly Jennifer, you encounter pedestrians too, maybe like Franklin Street and those areas too. What should people keep in mind there also?
First off, if you're going to be a pedestrian, please cross at your crosswalks. Every single accident that we worked last year where the pedestrian was there, they were not in the crosswalk. So cross in your crosswalks, look both ways, because if you're not in a crosswalk, the car's going to have the right of way, and you're not going to win a fight with the car. So just definitely, if you are the car that's driving downtown, slow down, watch your crosswalks, make sure nobody's walking. Definitely, when that light's getting ready to turn, take a couple of seconds and look both ways and make sure it's clear to go.
Yeah, because in those busy spots, you never know. Somebody might walk out, and you just obviously don't want to be that person who hits someone.
And especially downtown,
Yeah.
there's a lot of crosswalks, and the pedestrian has the right of way in the crosswalk. So if you hit the pedestrian in the crosswalk, it's going to be your fault. So, not only think about that, but the safety of the pedestrian. Look at the crosswalks before you proceed through.
Well, I thank you both for coming by and sharing such good information with us. And is there any good information you want to pass along before we say goodbye today?
If we got a couple of seconds, I want
Yes.
to talk about We call it the victim of the wave, and I don't know how much you have a problem of it. If you're in a busy intersection, downtown, Fort Campbell, Wilma Rudolph, there's multiple lanes, and you're trying to be nice to let that person make that left turn, and you're waving them through. You may be stopped, but the lane next to you may not be stopped. So please, if you can exit and make a left turn, do it at a red light, and don't let those cars out. I know we're trying to be nice, but what's happening is the second and the third lane's not stopping, and we're having major accidents, and unfortunately, it's that driver that's trying to cut across traffic's fault.
Yeah.
So,
And I bet because we have a lot of, like you said, big intersections like Fort Campbell and Wilma where we just, yeah, you can't do that. So go to the traffic light.
go to the stop
yeah.
signs, the traffic lights,
Right,
and all
right.
that stuff, and make your left turns.
Good information. Great. Well, thank you guys so much, and hopefully this will help people be safer when they're out and about and everything.
Thank you.
So thank you. Sergeant Jimmy Brown, Officer Jennifer Szczerbiak, thank you so much. And I'm Micca Terrell for Govs TV and 91.9 Public Affairs.